This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Hey guys, Big Paul here. Today we are going to talk about, are you eating too much fat for bodybuilding? This always cracks me up. But when I have people come on for coaching clients and I send them my diets, which are generally, not always, but it depends on what your specific goals are and where you're at and what you have going on. But most of the time for people who want enhanced physiques and want to look better, I give them higher carbohydrate, lower fat diets. But one of the first questions I get is this enough fat? People are tripped up at how low fat my diets are. And really, you do not need as much fat as you think you do. And most Americans vastly overeat fat. And there are some compelling reasons why, for improved body composition, that we want to eat a lower fat, higher carbohydrate diet. I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. All right, so one of the first things I want to get out of the way with dieting for physique enhancement, we are dieting for improving the way we look, not for health. I just want to get that out of the way right out of the gate. People argue with me, well, I don't know, I think there might be a better way to do this, a healthier way to do this. We try to do our best to optimize health, but it's not our primary goal. It's our secondary goal when I am constructing, or when we're constructing a diet for competitive physique people or somebody who wants to just get in great condition. You might be sacrificing a little bit of health for improved physique. They don't always match up. Trust me, what you do in contest prep isn't healthy to get that ripped. Now, you can get down to 10 to 12% body fat and do it relatively healthy. But for optimizing physique, we're not putting health first. Health is secondary. Now, we want to think about health. We want to do our best to manage health. That is always there. But we are trying to enhance physiques first. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about diets. You know, people like to argue with me, the Mediterranean diet this, keto diet that, and, this would be better for you. Yeah, well, no shit. We're talking about pushing your body to extreme levels here. So this stuff is not always about what's the healthiest. It's about what gets you the best results. So with that said, and I do think this does play into health, is that most bodybuilders, at least people that want to be bodybuilders, physique athletes, gym bros, whatever that I come across, and most coaches that I've seen that I come across, give people way too many fats. You don't need that much fat in your diet. Not as much as you think. It's really a pretty minimal amount, and the average American vastly overeats fat. You think about it, like you look at, you go eat a burger and fries. I mean, you might have a meal that has 60, 70 grams of fat in it. The majority of the calories are fat. I would venture to guess, if I were a betting man, I don't know the statistics on it, but that the majority of the calories that most Americans eat comes from fat, not from carbohydrates. So people are vastly overeating fat, and more specifically, overeating saturated fat. And I see it a lot with bodybuilders there, and with physique athletes and gym bros. They're eating fattier cuts of meat. Rather than eating the 96% lean ground beef, they're eating 85 or 93 or whatever. Rather than eating chicken breasts, they're eating chicken thighs. They're eating pork chops, they're eating whole eggs, pounded down whole milk, things that have a lot of saturated fat in it that you don't need. It's just bad for you. And we don't have to get into that today. But most bodybuilders overeat fats. And people always say, well, what about EFAs? What about hormones? You really do not need that many EFAs for a healthy, it's for a healthy body. It really is pretty minimal if you look at it. I think it was, somewhere, it's grams. It's in grams. I think it was, I talked about it last week in my carb cycling video. If I remember right, it was something like 7 grams per day of the EFAs is really all you need to meet your dietary requirements. Now we're on the extremes end of the spectrum. We're pushing things harder, so we eat more of everything because we're really pounding our bodies. So let's just say you need 15, 20 grams of EFAs a day. It's not much. And you definitely don't need all the saturated fat you're eating. And, if you look at it like guys that are eating cuts of meat that aren't that lean, you can end up easily over 100 grams of fat per day, and you do not need that. You just do not need that. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people don't know, and this is why I think you're better off eating a higher carb, lower fat diet for body composition. I saw a study, and I think it was Lane Norton, I saw talk about it, I don't remember who, but that less than 2% of adipose tissue, stored body fat, actually originates from carbs. It's almost all from fats. So it's from dietary fat consumption. Now, I want to be clear here that at the end of the day, that burning fat and how much fat you store and how much fat you lose is net energy balance at the end of the day. It's thermodynamics. Thermodynamics reigns king. So it's calories in, calories out at the end of the day. But dietary fats are significantly more likely to be stored as adipose tissue, as body fat, than as carbohydrates. And us as physique athletes, we are not the normal average human being. We have an ability, we're burning up glycogen as we lift weights, and as we get bigger and we become bigger athletes, we have the ability to store more glycogen than most people do. So with that in mind, when you eat higher carbohydrate diets, you can sort of trick that energy storage system we talked about the other week in the carb cycling video. If you haven't checked it out, go look at the carb cycling video for muscle gain, and I go into detail about it there. But you're storing. You can store carbohydrates in the body in three ways. You can store primarily three ways. You can store it as muscle glycogen, liver glycogen, and as fat. And it seems like that in most research, it seems like that the last place of the body actually wants to put carbohydrates is in fat. It ends up, burning it up, storing it as liver or muscle glycogen first. So as a performance athlete, or any really sport, I would think, especially in bodybuilding, we want that big, bubbly, full look, or physique athletes, we want that big, bubbly, full look, and we want to perform our best in the gym when we're lifting weights. Having stored glycogen, which is the primary energy source that muscles use when exercising, why wouldn't you want to have that more carbohydrates stored as glycogen? It's just a ready available fuel source, and it also makes you look better. So, but here's the problem that you run into when you're eating a lot of carbohydrates and you're eating a lot of fat with it. Guess what happens to that excess dietary fat that you eat when you're eating a lot of carbohydrates? It gets stored as fat. Now, you'll get the keto zealots and the carnivore guys are saying, well, when you eat keto, you burn more fat. Well, no shit, you burn more fat because you're not eating fucking carbohydrates. It's the only energy source that your body really, really has. I mean, your body can burn protein as, through gluconeogenesis, can convert it into glucose, but it's like the last resort. So your body does shift towards fat burning, but that's because there's nothing else to use. So that doesn't happen when you're eating carbohydrates. So, and very, very few people, even the people that think they're on keto, aren't actually on keto. They're eating way too many carbohydrates and too much protein. So that's a story for another day. But so when you think about it, for optimizing physique, you want to eat low fats. You want enough to meet your metabolic and needs. You need to get some EFAs in. You need to get some fats for cellular repair and all the other things that fats do that are good in your body, vitamin absorption, chemical reactions, yada, yada, go down the list. So we want enough to meet those needs and probably no more for physique enhancement. And the rest we want to fill in with carbohydrates since they are the optimal fuel source for our sports. So we want to eat a high carbohydrate, low fat, moderate to high protein diet. That is optimal for our sport. And I think you'll find, and I've seen it, and I know calories in, calories out, thermodynamics, net energy balance, all that shit. It does reign true. You can't beat physics. You'd win a Nobel Prize if you did, as my coach tells me all the time. I hear Justin say it all the time. You'd win a Nobel Prize if you if you figured out a way to trick thermodynamics. But in a sense, what we're doing is manipulating the system when we eat high carbs. You're storing. You're not violating net energy balance or thermodynamics. You're just storing those carbohydrates in a different place, which is the glycogen stores. And there are no glycogen stores for fats. You just store them as fat tissue. So in our sport, we want to minimize fat storage, maximize glycogen storage, and maximize muscle protein retention and muscle protein synthesis. That's it. So when you think about it from those standpoints, it makes the most sense to eat a high carbohydrate diet, low fat, moderate protein diet. It just does. There's no two other ways around it. You can argue it as much as you want, and I've seen the results in people that I've worked with. People are like, "This is the most food I've ever eaten," and they're getting leaner, and they don't believe me. And it's just the truth of it. So anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you. I'm sure I'm going to have some haters on this one. People get very, very upset and very attached to their diets for some reason. And when you call into question their philosophy on diet, their paradigm, they get very upset. I believe I have people that I have used keto diets on. I'm not anti-keto in any way. I just don't think it's the best for physique enhancement. But if you have somebody who has a hard time losing weight, can't count calories, they maybe are their insulin sensitivity is just completely diminished and just terrible. Keto might be a good way out of it. But for physique athletes, somebody who wants to enhance their physique, I just think high carbohydrates, low fat diets are the best way to go. I've seen it over and over, and you can't convince me otherwise. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. If you want to argue with me or you think I'm wrong, put your comment in the comment section below. I love all of you. Take care. For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.